Hello,
Hi.
I'm here in Ukiah, California today, and it's in November 2022, and I'm actually at Alex de Grassi's place. He hosted me yesterday, and we are in his studio now.
And we heard your wonderful concert on Friday night. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I want to ask some questions, and he's going to tell you some good stories. And,
Okay.
Yeah, so you've been on the scene for a long time, long career as a solo style guitarist.
I made my first recording in 1977.
Mm-hmm.
It came out in the spring of 1978.
Mm-hmm.
And since then I've made, I don't even know, but I think maybe 17 or 18 albums.
As a solo.
Well, I'd say, I think I've made about 11
Mm-hmm.
or 12 that are solo,
Mm-hmm.
all solo.
Yeah.
And then I've made some where I collaborated with other musicians as
Mm-hmm.
well. But so I've been doing this for 43 years, I think.
Long time.
Or 44 years, I guess. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And of course, those the first 4 recordings were for the Windham Hill label.
Yeah.
And I was the second artist on the label after Will Ackerman, who started the label.
Yeah.
I got in right on the ground floor, as we say,
Yeah.
of that, and my career sort of got started with the start of that label. So,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. So I was very fortunate
Mm-hmm.
to be there at the right time in the right place,
Mm-hmm.
and within a few years I was making a real living
Yeah.
as a solo guitar musician touring, and I
That's
had a
great.
booking agent and
Mhm.
everything. Yeah,
Wow.
so yeah, it all happened pretty quickly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah.
And what amazes me is that your compositions, lots of like fingerstyle guitar players, when they get in at a certain age, they sometimes play like slower songs, but as I saw your concerts, you have slower songs, but you have very technically challenging compositions. You still play those difficult ones, and
Yeah.
which I got inspired.
Good, yeah. Well, I think I have slowed down a bit, but and I've come to really appreciate
Mm-hmm.
Slower pieces. And what I like about slower pieces
Yeah.
is, and I've heard you do this too,
Mm-hmm.
when you have a slow ballad or a song that's slow,
Mm-hmm.
is you can really kind of take the time to get in and sort of manipulate the notes
More
and
details.
with the pitch and
Mm-hmm.
the texture of everything and so
Yeah.
forth. Sometimes when you play the fast ones, you everything goes by so fast you can't put all those little nuances in the playing.
Yeah.
But it's true, I still like to have written some pretty fast and technically challenging
Yeah.
pieces. Like on my latest record, which the Bridge, which came out in 2020, I did, for example, I did the opening track on there is called Mr. B Takes a Walk. It's kind of a funky James Brown inspired piece, and
like 16 beats.
yeah, so it's pretty fast and nonstop.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also the title track, The Bridge, which is it's kind of a difficult piece because it's just constantly moving.
Yeah.
Both the rhythm and the harmony. So yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And what is your composition process? Because your compositions are sometimes very complicated, like harmonically, which I don't see much in fingerstyle guitar players. Very advanced harmonies you use, right?
Yeah, I think I've tried over the years to continue to expand my ability with rhythm and harmony, but I think what's interesting, you ask what my process is, and I almost always start with the rhythm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
the groove.
So and for me, a lot of times the melody comes out of the rhythm. So I'll get a rhythm going, and I like the feeling. Then I start to hear the melody, the melodic possibilities, and also sometimes the harmonies too, because then the melody starts to sort of drive the harmony. But I almost always start with the rhythmic part. It was interesting because somebody once interviewed me and said, "Oh, you have these. I like your melodies. You know, some of your pieces have these long, extended melodies." And how do you write melodies? And I said, well, they kind of write themselves, because I always start with the rhythm.
Oh, interesting.
And I have a very little interesting comment in there. There's an author and a neuroscientist named Daniel Levitin. He wrote a book many people may have heard of called "This Is Your Brain on Music." And he contacted me afterwards, and we ended up giving a talk together in San Francisco at the Commonwealth Club. And in that talk, he said something that really struck me, which was, we were talking about the composition process and talking about how the emotional aspect of music, how do you create emotion? And he said, well, the word emotion is comprised of two things. Which in Western languages, in Latin, means out of or coming from, and motion. Motion, movement. Yeah. So I love that thought because for me that's how it works, is you have this motion and then something comes out of it. So for me that's kind of my process.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. And you use a lot of different tunings.
I do.
And all the time you...
Well, I started out, playing standard tuning when I was learning how to play guitar, and I pretty early on I discovered, of course, drop D tuning, just tuning the bass down, and then and some of the other standard tunings that are derived from, say, like dobro or banjo, C tuning, like, G tuning, and they always have a major third in them, so they're kind of
happy, bright,
And then I started to experiment and coming up with more unusual tunings.
Right.
One of the early ones I had was E, B, E, F sharp, B, E, which and now play down pitch, so it's D, A, D, E, A, D. So it's kind of like Dad Gad,
E, A, D. Okay.
Which is Dad Gad, of course, is very
But the
popular.
third is E.
It's E, so it's there's no third in there's major or minor.
Yeah, wow.
Kind of like Dad Gad, because with the G and Dad Gad you have the fourth or the suspension. So this is like the lowest suspended second or something.
Oh, okay.
And I like that because you can move easily between major and minor, and
you can go to different directions.
Yeah.
From there.
And the other thing I would say about harmony, since you brought that up, is I have played jazz some, and I've played classical guitar. So, those are typically more chromatic.
Right.
You have the 2-5-1 in jazz, 2-5-1, 2-5-1, and all it keeps circle of fifths and all those kinds of movements. But I like a lot of the modal music, the modal harmonies. Yeah. But I try to, when in some of my writing, I try to combine the two things: chromatic harmony and modal harmony. Okay. And I came up with a term. It sounds silly, but I call it chromodal.
Chromodal.
Yeah.
That's cool. Wow.
It sounds like an ancient civilization.
Chromodal.
Chromodal civilization.
Yeah.
Chromodal man.
Wow.
So yeah.
Could you show me some of the tunings? A couple of tunings, you're like a signature tuning kind of thing.
Okay, so this is Dad Gad. I won't go there because you know that, and everybody is pretty familiar with Dad Gad now. So one that I particularly like is if I tune the 5th string down to G, and the D down to a C. Then I have, it's like Dad Gad on the top.
C, G, D, G, A, D.
Yeah.
And are you the only one using this tuning?
No, there are other people using it, but I came upon it just myself, but I've heard other people do it, and so I think other people have discovered it some way or as well. So for example, I play the Water Garden. etc.
Oh, cool.
And I also like to. I love when dadgad and other tunings where the strings are just a whole tone apart. Like,
oh, yeah.
because I can do.
You can do unison. It's beautiful.
So that's a nice tuning.
Yeah.
I made an interesting discovery with this tune.
Mm-hmm.
I was mentioning to you yesterday that I studied jazz piano for a while.
Jazz piano, huh?
And I'm not a very good player, but I learned a lot about jazz and music studying that.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out that these are, in this tuning, I can get a lot of those jazz piano voices.
Like a voice.
Or
Oh,
like, these are kind of like jazz piano voicings where you get the sixth and the seventh together, or the ninth and the minor third. And
usually you cannot do it on a standard tuning.
it's hard to get the full voicings. You can get part of them sometimes, but it's hard to do in standard tunes. So,
I see.
so I sometimes joke and say this is my jazz piano tune.
Okay. Wow.
So those are a couple, and I'll show you one more.
Yeah, sure.
If I take the second string and tune it up to a B flat.
B flat. Yeah. And the bottom two still stay the same?
Well, the fifth string is still a G.
G.
And then I bring the C all the way up to E flat.
E flat, okay.
So now I have these 5 strings, sounds like a G minor tuning.
Oh yeah, that's a minor triad.
Right.
Plus E flat.
Right. Plus E flat.
6.
And a G minor over an E flat can also be an E flat major.
E flat.
Like that.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
So, and you know, I like this. So I can play in G minor and I can play in B flat. Yeah.
That's cool.
So this is another one, and then I have, there's lots more, but these are a couple that I particularly like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, thanks for sharing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. It's so nice to spend some time with you this time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been great to have
Thanks
you here,
so much.
and yeah, I'm looking forward to hanging out again when we
Yeah,
have a
I
chance.
hope
I know
to-
you got to leave soon.
I
So.
hope to come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Please
Alex.
do. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.